My name is Kirsten Budwine. I'm a policy attorney with the Texas Civil Rights Project. The Texas Civil Rights Project is all about fighting for Texans, specifically marginalized and oppressed Texans, through advocacy, policy, and litigation. And so when we put together the panel, I also have my coworker, Chris Harris, but he came down with a stomach bug last minute, so he is not going to be here. But we have some phenomenal panelists here, Bill Wallace, and then we have Chaz Moore. And so I've personally witnessed both of these people in action, and I want to say, like, it's really an honor to be moderating the panel with these two. So if you don't know, you're about to learn that these two are not only like local legends, but state legends. And so I want to first start off with Bill Wallace. Again, these two do like so many things. They wear so many hats, but I'm going to just focus on two of their main organizations. So Bill Wallace, he's the founder of Tomorrow's Promise Foundation, which works to divert children from the criminal legal system by taking a holistic, community-driven approach. So his organization connects parents with the support that they need to not only care for their children, but also advocate for them, while also offering services and programs for you to receive peer mentoring, coaching, and development. So give a little clap for Bill. And then we also have Chaz Moore. So Chaz Moore is the founder of the Austin Justice Coalition, which works to dismantle systemic barriers in areas such as criminal justice, education, housing, and economic mobility. His organization ensures that Black, Indigenous, and people of color are no longer disproportionately affected by injustice. His organization has also developed a series of social justice initiatives aimed at eliminating systems that create racial disparities, which is really on point of what we're going to talk about here. So the name of the panel is Direct and Collateral Consequences of Cannabis Criminalization. So that's what we'll be talking about, with an emphasis on how the criminalization impacts Black and brown folks, right? So I want to start off by talking straight up with that, like racial disparities. So the first question is going to go to Chaz Moore, and I want to give a little context before I just give out the questions for folks who are newer to this issue. So the ACLU released a report back in 2020, and they found that while Black and white people use cannabis at similar rates or almost the same rates, Black people are 2.6 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis possession and use. And so my question to you, Chaz, is I know you do a lot of work with the policing, police reform, and coming from an abolitionist standpoint in Austin. So how does targeted surveillance in certain neighborhoods and other law enforcement decisions shape who is criminalized and who is not criminalized?
Oh, well, first I thought Bill would go first, so y'all see Bill was supposed to be here. I'm just a fill-in. Can you repeat the last part of the question here?
Yeah. So the question is about how does targeted surveillance in certain neighborhoods, like police targeted surveillance in certain neighborhoods and other law enforcement decisions, shape who is and is not criminalized? Like, how do we get to the point where Black people and white people use cannabis at the same rates, but Black people are more criminalized than white folks?
Man, how much time do we have? I mean, I said it because, like, one, I am here solely because I love Kirsten and I love Alicia, and they call me. And also I know like Heather Fazio, some of the folks that are part of putting this conference together. So I don't want to overspeak and offend you all, because I don't know where you all are on the political spectrum. But in the same. So I'll just say this: what the views that I'm finna say do not reflect that of anybody that put this panel together, or TCRP. But I think it just is what it is at this point. You know what I mean? Like, we know over the last, and you all probably know this better than me because you're in this field. I'm just a user. I'm not in the wonkiness of cannabis policy, but we know that over the last 10 to 20 years, as we've seen cannabis turn into an industry, we've seen the people that are able to reap the benefits of the industry side of marijuana and cannabis, right? And we all know, we don't have to spend any much more time talking about the hypocrisy in that when we talk about the 92 crime bill, when we talk about, you know, what they call them, the super predators and all this type of stuff, the tough on crime, we know the people that were affected by that the most. And we also know why because of that, right? Like we know that just the foundation of this land that we are upon, America, has really built this empirical power based on the dehumanization of black folks, brown folks, women, queer folks, anybody that is not like white, you know, cis male. So yeah, when we talk about over surveillance, when we talk about excluding folks from the now business side of cannabis, of course, we're going to exclude and leave out, and of course, we're going to test and experiment when it comes to surveillance on the same group of people that we've always experimented and tested on, right? And even the whole cannabis thing too. I'm always surprised that more brown people, Latino people, Hispanic people are not weighing in on this fight, because I believe in the 40s or something like that, there were a lot of Latino, Hispanic Americans that were using hemp to make shirts, ropes, all type of shit. And that was the first time we saw the prohibition of like cannabis and marijuana, because there was a segment of the American people that were not white that were making money from it, right? So it's the same link to what's going on now. There's this huge, I don't know if it's a black market anymore. I don't know if the black market still exists for marijuana, because you can get it all over the place. Well, all right. Thank you for that. But so yeah, it's just all very interesting to see the full, or like Bill says a lot, the pendulum swing in terms of who has access to cannabis, I guess legally and rightfully, and who doesn't. And I don't think we need to spend any time with the group of people here explaining the why. We know the why, right? Like, so I hope that answered the question a little bit.
Yeah, I did. All right, Bill. I want to talk about, I think when we talk about cannabis criminalization, youth really get left out of that conversation a lot. And so you've been at the legislature, you've been there trying to pass good bills, trying to block bad bills. Back in 2023, they passed a law, it was HB 114, that requires that students caught in possession of using vape pens, including vape pens that include THC, on school property are forced to be removed from regular campus onto these DAEP schools. And so before I get into, well, I'll ask the question, but I would love for you to talk about like how DAEP is different from, you know, regular campus, like what's the big deal? But the question is, can you speak to how this and similar policies have fed into the school to prison pipeline and the impact that they've had on youth, and not only youth, but their families?
Yeah, so thank you for that. And also thanks for the invite for the panel discussion. So DAEP is schools that are outside the norm. They are outside the purview of the normal education process. So even more so than like charter schools and et cetera. In part, like they don't, there's pretty much non-existent opportunities for individuals who might have like learning disabilities, Bible 4 students and students with disabilities and things like that. So there's zero support there, and I would argue that most of it is set in a detention center form. So it's kind of like going to school in detention center. And oftentimes they're the same teachers and facilitators that actually work in the detention centers, kind of like do a dual process thing. And even the uniform, even how they dress, how they come in, how they serve lunch, everything is set in more of a institutionalized. And when I say institution, I mean jail institution setting, including the rules and things like that. You're assigned a probation officer, whether you've been convicted of a crime or not, those kind of things. And they report directly to your probation officer, all that kind of stuff. Speaking to this specific piece of legislation, paired with the other policies that have been passed, basically what happens is that if a young person, the first week that we had a kid, the very first week get kicked out of school behind this. But not only were they kicked out of school, but it's also they also get a charge along with it. And there's several problems with this. I'll give you an example of a young man. We'll call him PJ. His first initial was a junior. He got kicked out of 5 different schools for basically the same thing, vaping in the bathroom, pretty much almost identical. Every situation was almost identical. So from Dallas to Del Valley to AISD to Elgin ISD, 5 different schools within a 12-month period of time removed for the same thing. And many people will say, well, that's evidence that, like, this kid needs to be out of school. But in not one of those situations was he offered any type of substance use support. Not one time was it a requirement that and support being provided for him. And to me, that's problematic. It's problematic. You create a problem, and you double up on punishments from the problem that you created yourself. And oftentimes these young people that are introduced to marijuana, THC pens and all that kind of stuff, they're introduced to it by, people who otherwise care for them and love for them. My favorite big cousin, I saw him with it, and so now I want it. And so they're not doing this to be deviant, so to speak. And there's just no education around it. And that makes it even more problematic that we created a punishment system without any solution of digging at the core root problem that it's addressing.
Thank you for that. Next, I want to talk about the personal economic impact that these type of charges have. So I'll give an example. A lot of people in the room are familiar with SB 5. It was the second iteration of SB 3, which was the hemp ban bill during the 2023 legislative session, or 2025 legislative session. And so I remember talking to this lawmaker about how, so I guess they removed the felony provisions or whatever from SB 3, and in SB 5, it was just a Class C misdemeanor to be caught in possession of what is now legal hemp, right? These products. And I said, this is still criminalization. He said, this is not criminalization. It's a Class C misdemeanor, which means it's a fine-only punishment. You can't go to jail or prison for it. So this is not criminalization. So my question to you, Chaz, is can you speak to how fines and fees are directly linked to involvement with the criminal legal system, especially for people who are poor or economically disadvantaged?
Yeah, I think it's only a fine is a privileged thing to say, right? Because you have to have money to pay fines, and I think we know that most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. You pick the industry, you pick the field. Most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and you get caught up with a fine that you really can't afford, and now that fine turns into a warrant. Now you're in jail. Now you're going through this whole circle of poverty thing that, again, I'm sure most of you all know about. So yeah, it's just the fines began a very treacherous cycle that is really hard to get out of for a lot of people, which is why I'm always joining arms and forces with anybody that's talking about decriminalizing marijuana, destigmatizing marijuana, and hopefully legalizing it, because it's a tool that's still being used to criminalize people when it shouldn't. And but on the flip side, it's also a tool that's been able to make a lot of people money. So, yeah, I don't think we need to waste too much time on that.
Thank you. And then, Bill, I want to ask you about the collateral impact. So, I know you have your own organization, but you've also been involved with the Clean Slate Initiative, right? So the Clean Slate Initiative, y'all really focus on expanding access to clean people's records, right? So cannabis possession charges are one of the things, or one of the charges that that can be cleaned off your record, but it kind of gets icky, right? Like there are all these regulations. People sometimes have to hire lawyers. There are fees involved. But before we get into talking specifically about Clean Slate, I want to ask, so I think when people hear the word criminalization, they think about the initial arrest, the initial interaction with the police officer, jail, prison. But can you talk about some of the overlooked collateral consequences of a cannabis charge or a conviction, the consequences that go beyond incarceration?
Yeah, so I'll piggyback even off of Chad's, the question you asked Chad's, right? So I get a fine for marijuana, and it's not criminalization. And then what happens is that I can't pay it, and then I find myself in a situation where I'm trying to register my vehicle, renew my license, or something like that, and they're like, "Oh, you got a hold right here. You can't do that. Matter of fact, you got some late fees and all that on top of it." I'm already in crisis mode, and so now it's like, well, I have to, pay my rent or pay my car note or whatever, or pay this fee, and it's not even a question at that point, right? I take care of my business. I worry about my license later, right? And so now without a license, and that opens up a whole nother can of worms. And essentially what it does is it forces people to live outside the chatty. It forces people to live outside the lines. And so, when you're forced to live, in the shadows, and now, that leads to even when you're trying to get things in your name, now you have to get it in your boyfriend or your girlfriend name, and then that causes problems. If there's a breakup, there's a split. And I'm saying these things because these are families that we help. What we come to find out is that it was something similar to a fine or something that started this snowball of effect to where now, even when it comes to wanting to register their children in programs and things like that, I really can't do it because I'm afraid if I go up there that, I might get arrested. You know what I mean? Because I got this warrant, or I got this pending, or this hold, or my driver's license isn't no good, or whatever, right? And now the kids suffer. And so we see it as a, kind of holistically how these consequences affect people. And then when we start thinking about long-term collateral consequences that we don't see, is that it may be that I'm a pretty good electrician or pipe fitter, plumber, HVAC, or any MEP trade, and there's several companies that I can't even work with because they do background checks, and they don't really care about the charge or whatnot. They got insurance. They have to be bonded, and I'm being held back, not because there's a fear that I might have a theft property or I might have a risk management issue there. I'm just being held back because the company's bonding company they can't get insured or bonded if I have any type of conviction, even if it's 10 years old, 20 years old. I can't go to my child's field trips and things like that because you have to go through, I forgot the name of the system, whatever, the volunteer system. They scan you and flag you, and that's embarrassing to not even be able to volunteer with your kids. And so I know people who are scared to put in for promotions right now that are doing director level jobs and executive level jobs they're doing the work, but scared to go in for the promotions because they got to go back to HR again over convictions that are 10, 15, 20 years old. And so when we start talking about collateral consequences, what we're talking about is people having the ability to live in neighborhoods that they deem safe and reasonable to raise their kids in, with access to parks and sidewalks and street lights and swimming pools and things like that. Because in those neighborhoods, guess what? They do background checks. All the property management companies, and I'm no fan of HOAs. I don't know if you are. Don't talk to me. There's all types of regulations dealing with property management companies on who can and who can't rent and live in certain neighborhoods. And all of these are collateral consequences that you don't think about when you're issuing fines for marijuana or tickets for marijuana or locking people up for marijuana. I know I'm being long-winded, but I'm going to give this last example here. There was individuals that President Joe Biden, he pardoned individuals with simple marijuana possession cases. And the flag behind it was, there ain't nobody getting out of prison behind that. And I'll argue that that's not true. Not as a direct result, probably not, but people had enhanced sentences because of that. People had to take plea bargains that they otherwise would not have had to take because, hey, if I go to trial on this situation that I'm in for, I'm going to be deemed a habitual and I'm going to have enhancements on my charge or on my recommendation because of these simple marijuana charges. And so taking that off made people eligible for food stamps and assistance and things like that for education and Pell Grants that they otherwise would not have been qualified for, because these are things that if you have these drug charges that you are automatically disqualified. You couldn't meet threshold in order to get these things. So it opens up people to be able to I sit on the board of a CDL school. People are now, those individuals at that CDL school are now able to take these same people and get them funding through economic development programs because they qualify now. And these are things that are talked about when people get these convictions.
You were not long-winded. That was all necessary, so don't feel long-winded. So back again, you're a member of the Clean Slate Initiative, and their whole thing is cleaning criminal records, right? So can you tell me about some of the group's recent policy wins at the Texas legislature, like the last legislative session, past 5 years? Did we give just like a couple wins that y'all had?
Wins at this building. I'm gonna be honest. What I call wins sometimes nowadays in this climate really are stopping bad bills, and preventing bad bills, or putting reducing the harm of bad bills. We haven't been able to, get clean slate legislation passed here in Texas. We've got movement during certain sessions, but what we have been able to do is have a petition-based expungements, which is record clearing, essentially. But those things have hurdles. You need lawyers for that. You need people who know how to navigate the system. You need money. You need resources. And although there are a number of people who do a lot of good work and do like free expungements and things like that, that sponsor these things, there are policy groups that do that. You have to be able to take off from work to get that. It creates something in what Clean Slate offers is automation that just like DPS can automatically shut your driver's license down if you don't renew it in time. Just like they can, automatically issue fines if things aren't paid and things like. We can have automation to clear individuals' records after they have completed their sentence, and then a look back period that makes sense for whatever their conviction was for. We haven't gotten there yet, but I mean, we're holding on. 13 states and the District of Columbia have all did it this year. Illinois just signed like a month ago. And so we're still working, we're still fighting. But as of now, we're petition based, and it's real clunky and funky.
I read a statistic on y'all's page that said less than 10% of people who are eligible to clear a record,
They didn't know.
like, clear their record. And so, like, what are the things, you spoke a little bit about it, like the fees, like having a lawyer, like, are there some other things that are keeping people, like, people just don't know that you need to clear out? I'll give you one example. I had a friend who was arrested for something. They didn't have enough evidence. They didn't have enough probable cause. And so they dropped the charges. He goes on about his life. He finds out that that charge is still on his background check, right? And so it's stuff like that where it's like, I mean, can you give me some more examples? Like, people just don't really know.
Yeah, but people don't know. And the penal code is so vast and wide, no one knows all of it. But people don't know, like, basic things about the criminal punishment system, and how it affects you just by your mere touch of it. And the numbers don't lie. Statistically, if you have any contact with the criminal punishments, whether you are convicted, whether you spend a night in jail, ever get the handcuffs or not, exponentially, your chances of having a second contact with it rises tremendously. And for people who avoid that second contact, they oftentimes, just out of pure ignorance, do not know that, hey, I need to go get this actually expunged off of my record. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that true for every group of people, men or women, black, white, Asian, whatever? Or
Yeah.
just certain subgroups?
No, that's true for everybody. Like, you have to know. Now, the problem is who has access to that information. Different subgroups have more access to that information. For example, if I get pulled over, we get accused of something, and the charges get dropped for you and I, but when it happened to you, your loved ones immediately sent the lawyer down there and was getting to the bottom of it, and making sure that it was clear. And my family just contacted a Bills bondsman or something, right, to get me out. Now, you having access to that attorney and that lawyer might give you more access because of your socioeconomic status, because of your privilege of being able to afford an attorney at that time. Gives you better access to know that, like, hey, look, this really isn't the end of this. Let's make sure that they formally dismiss the charges and get this expunged off your record. Whereas me, I'm just happy that they never called us back in and go on with my life.
Saying there is a stratification along economic lines.
Yes, it applies to everybody, but there is along economic lines, like, who has access to this.
Next, I want to talk about, this is the last question before I open it up to the audience. So one thing that I really admire about the work that y'all do is y'all center the voices of the people that y'all are fighting for every step of the way. Like, I've never seen y'all center yourselves in anything that y'all do, right? And so as we continue to fight to end racial disparities and the criminalization of cannabis in Texas, how do we ensure that impacted communities and individuals who are mostly impacted by these policies are centered in policy making rather than being, like, discussed in a room without them, like, being there?
I mean, this is a question I was trying to hurry to get to. I think, and man, I'll just say it because, y'all can't stop me. I think what we're learning in this country is, what some of us are learning, what some of us already knew, is that we must, and we should be willing to struggle together. And I think that what's happening now in Minnesota and before Minnesota, let's not forget Chicago,
DC.
and yeah, in DC, like, I think the craziness is just amplifying in Minnesota. But I think what we're seeing is that authoritarianism and this this attack on, and I really hate to say the word democracy because I do not think we've ever had that in this country, but just for the sake of us being on a common thread, I'll say democracy is literally under attack. And I think, and I could be wrong because I thought in 2020 we was doing the same thing, but then if I could just be honest, white people did what white people do. Like they cared for like a second, then it was like back to Starbucks I go. But this feels different, and maybe I'm cautiously optimistic that we're beginning to realize that, oh shit, like what they were doing to the black folks, they're now doing to us if I'm Latino, and then what they were doing to black and Latinos, they're not doing to white folk. Right? So it's just like we've always had people in movements around the globe tell us, preach, profess to us that, you know, if I was quiet, like when they came for the Jews, I was quiet, right? When they came for, all these amazing quotes that we've heard for millennia, but like we never really like internalized. And I think once we realize that, and this has been my spiel for the last couple months now, until we realize that the well-being of your neighbor is reflective of your well-being, until we really understand that, like, we'll just keep doing the same things, asking the same panel questions, talking about like where do we go from here, and it's so simple to me. It's like I can't explain the physics and science of like Earth and, you know, like this big rock with lava in the middle and spinning. I can't explain none of that shit because it's amazing to me. But like it makes sense to me that in freezing degree weather, if I see somebody outside, that should bother me, right? It should even as a man, if I know that women, and then it gets worse based on race. Like if I'm at a company and I know women are doing probably smarter and better work than men, just because that's also a science thing that I can't explain. Women are just better at something than we are, but they're not getting paid the same. That should bother me, right? If I know that people are being persecuted and tried for their beliefs about who they can love and who they want to be, that should bother me because at some point it is going to happen to you, right? And I think in terms of this, in this question that she asks is indicative of ICE, is indicative of police reform, it's indicative of CJ reform, housing reform, just all the things is that we tend to not give a fuck until it's too late. Like we don't give a fuck until it happens to us. And that has always been the problem. And this is, and like this is, I think, in my humble opinion, it's amazing that we are the wealthiest country in the world, but we operate like the fucking slums in terms of how we treat one another. Only place in the world. Like I've been to, like I'm a huge Beyonce fan. I traveled to go see her. I went to Barcelona for Act 1. I went to London for Act 2. And when I'm talking to people around the world, it's just like, what are y'all doing over there? You know, like, and I'll end on this because I can talk about this for hours. As I'm leaving London, and who knew London had 2 airports? I found out on the day I was trying to get back home. And I was an hour away from the one I need to be at. But anyway, I got on the bus, and I'm getting on the bus with my luggage, and there's a woman who's pregnant with her 2 kids. She gets up and gives me the seat. And I'm just like, well, that was something. You know what I mean? Like, that was just something to me. And as I'm riding on the bus, there is more people getting on, and people are kind of like understanding that I think you need to see better than me. It's like this really fascinating game that people are playing on the bus ride. But as I continue to ride, there's a message. There's a audio message on the bus that says, hey, just reminding you, if you are able to give up your seat to somebody that needs it, just consider it. This is a message on a bus in London that's just reminding you to be a decent human being. But it's little stuff like that that's ingrained in other societies around the world that reminds you to consider the other person. And here it's the complete opposite, right? Like, don't worry about the immigration thing because it's a Latino issue, which is not all the way true. Like, there are more Africans deported, like per capita per rate than you know what we consider to be a Mexican problem, right? The police thing for the last 10 years, like white people's like, well, we care, but we can't care too much because that's not our issue. It's crazy to me that we are not understanding or tapping into our power as a collective of American people. On the 250th, I think next year.
No, by now.
76. 250 year celebration of the Declaration of Independence. Another thing I've been on, I'm going to be on later when I speak, is the only part that you need to really internalize of the Constitution is we the people. That's it. Hard stop. All other shit is debatable anyway, because you know it ain't really happen that way. But I think if people understand that we the people, if we can collectively understand that we do not have to be clones of one another, and that it's okay to be different and still do this thing called life together, and also just understand like basic shit, like it's okay for us as humans to be like, hey, bro, yeah, I get it. We on a rock in the middle of space with a bunch of other rocks, and like I don't understand it either, but like let's just figure it out. Like that's okay. It's okay to do that. And I think once we get that basic concept of like we are understanding and figuring out life together, then it's very easy to me to do the easy shit like policy. Like if we can just look and feel the blatant hypocrisy when it comes to like, and we're just talking about cannabis, right? Like look at the people that are making millions and billions of dollars on cannabis, and then look at the people that are still in jail today for like grams of a fucking flower. You know what I mean? Like, of course we need to center these voices, right? Like, I think even in Texas, they talk about raising the licensing fee for people to like $30,000. So like now they might give you the decrim and the pardons, but you still can't get access. And if that's allowed to happen, that's not on the folks in the Capitol. That's on us, because we don't fight. And we don't fight because we're not strong enough, and we're not strong enough because we're not building relationships. So like that's why all this shit is happening. ICE is happening. Current over surveillance of our communities are happening. Our schools are failing. All these things are happening because we are acting like we don't have the power. Like this country can be what we want it to be if we believed in one another, but it's kind of hard to believe in people you don't know. Like even if I bet if I had the time to just walk around this conference, I can watch you all not talk to one another. You come in, you take some notes, you take a picture. Oh, I did a cool thing today. But you're not building relationships because you don't really care that much. So it's just like, and I tell people all the time, when y'all actually start giving them fuck about the possibility of change, then okay, I'll lean up a little bit. Other than that, I'm gonna keep making food reviews on TikTok because I enjoy it and it makes me happy. You know what I mean? But it's just that simple. Just start giving an actual fuck about the people around you in your ecosystem. And not just the people that you think elevates you. Like, who gives a fuck about the CEOs and all that? Like, we got to start linking arms for real, and get to know who is around us so we can start fighting for one another in a better way. And then, again, once you do that, it's easy to center the voices of people because it just makes sense. I don't know. That was a very long-winded answer, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much for that holistic answer. Preacher more. We're gonna open up for questions now, because we're at the end.
Yes, my question is true. Well, thank y'all first of all. It's a great mail out. There are a lot of value to hear when you talk about, like, and I can't remember the phrase, you just talk, the legislation you all are pushing, clean slate and legislate. When clean slate initiatives at the state level, and understanding that, sometimes we're eating the elephant, right? We got to take fights one bite at a time. I represent South Dallas on the Dallas City Council, and one of the issues that I have is the emphasis that we always put on what seems to be a Herculean feat, which is getting the legislature to act. What can we do at a local? How can we work with our county EAs? What is within the realm of the law at a local level that we could do to help? Other than we've already passed banning the box, looking at trying to close into the disparity gaps of the formerly incarcerated. But what can we do on the record side? How can we work with our county officials?
Didn't y'all decrim marijuana? And we did. Yeah, okay. Then. So I think that one of the major things you can do with the DA is stop the bleed. And how you do that is by saying, look, when individuals are, for whatever reason, AJC, they do some level of recrim, right? And but even despite that, there's we have a governor who also thinks he's our mayor, that, says, well, DPS, y'all gonna patrol the streets of Austin, and I want y'all to follow every law. There's a law, the state of Texas, put it in. And we have a district attorney who says, actually, I'm not gonna prosecute those cases, right? And then we have a attorney general and a lieutenant governor who says, well, we're gonna sue you, and we're gonna roll DA bills and things like that. And so these are long-term fights on a local level, but simply not prosecuting or creating diversion programs or deflection programs that allow for these cases not to move forward. And when you do that, make sure that we're also keeping in mind all these other things we said. It can't be a diversion or deflection program where someone has to come every night of the week from 5 to 7, and they have to piss in a cup 3 times a week. We have to understand what we have and what we're doing and the reason why we're doing it. So it has to be really thought out, which brings a point of Kirsten make, but centering the people who are bringing lived experience into that discussion about what those deflection diversion programs look like, to make sure that things aren't actually ever getting on individuals' records to begin with, whenever possible. That's something that local authorities can do, because you have the contract with the police, you have on the county level, the district attorney has the power to create a diversion track through their office. So those are things that can be done to stop the bleeding. I really need
these that have resource funds specifically similar to we funded legal representation for not only eviction but also for immigration. They make it their
but absolutely. And those where you have organizations that can do free expungements because you're sponsoring it, and to be able to do that, and then also awareness, making sure that people understand, make sure that the public defender's offices and everybody involved in that process, when people know that, hey, listen, you can have your record displayed. This charge qualifies already. We don't even have to pass any one legislation. This offense or this situation qualifies already. Would you like to move forward? And we can, we have a indigent program or whatever it takes, or whatever means and methods to get those individuals representation to be able to expunge those feeds off of their records. Absolutely, you can do that. And I'm gonna leave you a question just for a second, because I have to say this, that we have to remember I honor you for that question, not just because you work locally and you care, but I believe in like think globally, act locally. Like I believe that as a principle, like do the next best thing type of thing. But these things are what we're fighting against is Chaz talked about it on a human level, but the opposite of what he said, corporate greed. Like there's young people on college campuses are drinking less. That's what statistics say. Alcohol companies are losing money. Why? One argument is because people are vaping more. People are smoking more marijuana, and they're turning to marijuana and not alcohol. That's one theory. That theory has led alcohol companies to give tremendously to Lieutenant Governor.
Okay.
Tremendously. This is public information. This is not hard to research. They've given generously, super generously, in ways that they'd never get. Why is the alcohol all of a sudden interested in what's going on? And what is his pet peeve now? Shutting down cannabis. He's on there with gun. He don't even know what's in. We don't know what's in this stuff. Yeah, that a part of public safety is as long as you keep it black market. You're right. I don't know what's in it, but as soon as we can do things out in the open, we're no longer in the shadows. Yeah, now we can make sure that this is a matter of public safety, that we can track this kind of stuff. So we're fighting these local battles, but just be prepared. I mean, because we do it here. Our district attorney gets sued every 2 or 3 weeks behind this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And yeah, be prepared. I mean, like, fight the good fight, make good trouble, fight the good fight.
And I know we have to end, but I'll say the DA's office is the one who puts on those programs, those expungement programs in Austin. And so maybe you could look into something like that. It doesn't even have to be the DA's office. It could be, I know like some pro bono programs in Houston do the same thing. And so Dallas has like a legal aid. It's like geographic, like the legal aid societies are geographic. So I would look into that and see if they're able to offer some pro bono services. I think we have to wrap because it's supposed to end at 3:15.
Yeah, I won't. What you got? What are you going to kick us out?
Sure, hi there. So thank you for being here. This is something that I don't think a lot of avenues to work gets talked about enough. And so my experience with cannabis criminalization at TD and obviously points up also the psyche of what happens to people when they are incarcerated for years. But it's hard with that, but then they come out and slowly get the pace, not just with getting a house and stuff, but mentally just showing up for themselves every day because to their basic human rights, right? You know, they always do give it. So what are ways that we as advocates can support a clean slate and elevating criminalization organization? And how can we demand more from these brands and these companies to be doing what we need to do? What is right?
Now, I'm acting you back off of the okay, so what we're probably going to add is I'm hearing the very wall issue, where surveillance. So I want to tell you all that there are resources on YouTube from Democracy Now! Is a Justice, a libertarian law firm, and Jordan Hill Awards. They are all publishing new information on new technologies that are being used by police officers that are in the cyber division. And so they have new technologies like Bluetooth, VR on your phone. They're able to hack into your devices like a legal page account. So they're literally able to see your phone device outside the court law. So Institute for Justice here in Austin and San Antonio, what they're trying to do is that police are essentially outside of the court law without a warrant for seizing property, like the breaking and entering those homes and these vehicles, investigations. But there's no warrant. And this happened to my mother. She became a target of deportation, and she's a legal resident. So if she's a legal resident, where we place a police report where they stole my parents' marriage certificate, they stole my parents' financial documents, they stole my medical documents. So we did this past year. And so I just want people to know that these new technologies are actually, there's no regulations happening besides the people that are being honest about how they're being used. So I don't know what to tell you about that, but I just wanted you to have those resources. Associate Bar Publishing, that.
Thank you. Oh, I'll just mention real quick that Chaz and his organization work on getting rid of the automatic license plate read loss, which is part of that surveillance. So yeah, shout out to him. But I'll let you answer her question about Clay Slate.
Oh, well, I was gonna say thank you for that, but and also so let me also say I'm a Capricorn, bro. Like, so I'm not very optimistic or enthused about much. So what you said, those are good resources, but I think part of the problem in that is it still takes away from it takes away from the human connections that we need to make, right? Like, because I'm not a conspiracy theorist either, but I think the shit that is happening in Minnesota is all a ploy to trigger martial law. And I think that if that happens, because we've already seen it, we've seen the censorship on what we can read, and it's happening on TikTok to where, right? So like, I think all that type of stuff that we have on the internet is really finna go away. And I think that again is going to, call for us to lean into one another and make human connections. Like, even when I go to organizing meetings and it's all on Google and Zoom, I'm just like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, we have to get back in the habit of getting enclosed spaces, personal spaces with one another, because those resources will not be here by the end of the year, in my humble opinion. I hope I'm wrong, but like, we need to start. There's no practicality application to like online stuff. Like, I can read about it, I got the resources in my brain, but if I don't know how to actually apply that in real life, or even who to apply it to, or who I'm applying it to, then again, like what are we doing? You know what I mean? So again, like, I just really hope my whole hill that I'm gonna die on, I hope, is that like, when I fade away, I hope I can be accredited to convincing people that my one biggest truth, besides Beyonce is the greatest performing artist of all time, is that we are like we the people are our greatest resource, and we just don't get it. We just don't get it. So I'll leave on that note.
Well, thank y'all so much.
Yeah. Oh, they find like shouldn't be blessed. Like, oh, good. I'll follow my seat. So we're still here. We're catching the whole lot.